Hey everyone, welcome back to episode 11. Today we're going to dive into the Sony menu system and I'm going to show you how I customize my camera for both video and photography. This should be the same process for all the Sony mirrorless cameras regardless of the model, so let's dive right in. Assuming your camera is straight out of the box and you're turning it on for the first time, this should be the screen that you see. If not, you can initialize the camera to start from scratch. You can use the control wheel on the back of the camera to navigate through the camera's settings. I'm going to select English for my preferred language. Hit enter. I'm in the central time zone, so I'll choose Chicago. Turn daylight savings on. Today is June 12th, 2020, and it's currently 9 a.m. Go ahead and hit enter, and then hit OK. Your camera is now ready to be used, but to fully maximize this camera, we're going to want to set up a few custom settings first. Keep in mind that you can always change these settings later. First things first, hit the menu button on the top left on the back of the camera. For file format, we want to select RAW and uncompressed. Leave everything else as is. Use the control wheel to navigate over to submenu number 2. Go down to color space and select Adobe RGB for the best color rendering. Navigate over to submenu number 4 and select interval shoot function. This is the camera's built-in time-lapse mode. For now, I will set the shooting interval for 2 seconds and the number of shots to 240 for a 10-second time-lapse. You can always adjust this later. Hit the menu button to go back and navigate over to submenu number 6. I prefer back button autofocus, so I turn AF with shutter off. Navigate to menu number 2, submenu number 4, and turn off E front curtain shutter. Navigate over to submenu number 8. You will notice a custom key function. Each custom key in this menu has a different icon labeling either photography, video, or playback. Click the first custom key with the icon displayed for photography. It also looks like a mountain peak. Under custom button 1, select picture profile. Under custom button 2, select interval shooting. For custom button 3, add zebra display select. And for custom button 4, select peaking display select. Move over to the second menu, select the center button, and then add audio record level. In the third menu, under AEL button, select IAF for eye autofocus. You can now back out of the menu by hitting the menu button. Navigate down to the custom key for video, and make sure everything is set to follow custom for each custom button. This will keep the same custom buttons for both photography and video, no matter which mode you are in. Once you have your custom buttons set up, scroll over to the briefcase menu and go to submenu number 2. Scroll down to auto power off temp and select high. Ignore the warning and hit OK. These Sony mirrorless cameras are prone to overheating, so this functionality allows the camera to get hotter in order to last longer before shutting down. Now that all of your custom buttons have been set, you can start using the camera. But we can take this a step further to really maximize this camera's potential. Notice how the top of the camera has a turn dial with different camera modes. It's important to learn how these modes affect your shooting, but for now we are going to focus on the modes that are outlined and labeled 1 and 2. These are essentially custom buttons, but they allow for much more in-depth memory settings. Let me show you how this works. First, turn the dial to the movie mode icon. At this point, we want to set the camera up exactly how we plan to use it when shooting video, and save those settings for future use. So let's dive back into the menu. Navigate to the second menu page. For exposure mode, change this to manual exposure. Go back to the menu and choose file format, XAVCS HD, and change the record setting to 120p 100 megabits. Go ahead and exit the menu. On the back of the camera, you will notice a button labeled FN. This is also known as the function button. Go ahead and select the function button to change all the settings as needed. You can always change this later, but whatever you set this to now will be saved as a custom setting. I'm going to make sure focus mode is set to manual. I'm going to set focus area to zone. I'll change my white balance to daylight and set my metering mode to multi. Once you have all that set, hit custom button 1 or C1 that we previously set up for picture profile. You can set these profiles to your preference, but for me, I only use 2 based off different situations when I'm shooting. I shoot both S-Log2 and Cine 4 depending on the situation. My recommendation for anyone just starting out would be to use the Cine 4 profile. Even if you are an experienced shooter, S-Log2 can be very tricky on these Sony mirrorless cameras. The S-Log2 profile is best suited for when you're using an external monitor, and because this is an 8-bit camera, you have very little room for mistakes. And even if your exposure and white balance are set perfectly, the camera still has its limitations. Either way, I'm going to show you how I set up both these profiles so that you can determine which one's best for you. Scroll down to PP7 and hit right on the control wheel. Make sure black level is set to -12. Gamma is set to S-Log2. Black gamma should be middle and 0. Make sure knee is set to auto. Color mode should be sgamut3.cine. Change saturation to +12. Leave color phase at 0. Leave color depth at 0. And change detail to -7 to reduce in-camera sharpening. Hit the menu button in order to back out to the picture profiles. Scroll down to PP4. Hit right on the control wheel. Black level should be set to 0. Gamma should be set to Cine 4. Change the black gamma range to wide and level +5. Leave knee on auto. Color mode should be S-Gamut 3.Cine. Saturation +5. Color phase +5. Color depth leave at 0. And detail change to -5, again to reduce in-camera sharpening. Go ahead and back out of the menu. Both picture profiles have been saved. Now we are almost completely set up. All you have to do is change your exposure to your preferred settings. Because I set my file format to 120 frames per second, I'm going to change my shutter to match that. If I'm using the 180-degree shutter rule, which states that my shutter should double the frame rate, then I'm going to set my shutter to 1/240th. However, the closest shutter on my camera is 1/250th, so I'll leave it at that. You can change your shutter by using the scroll wheel on the back of the camera. For me, I want to make sure my f-stop is set to 5.6. You can change the f-stop by using the scroll wheel on the front of the camera. To adjust the ISO, click right on the control wheel on the back of the camera. Change this to 200, which is the minimum ISO for Cine 4. Go ahead and dive back into the menu and navigate to page 1, submenu number 3. Scroll down to memory and hit enter. Use the screen to double check that all of your settings are correct. Make sure that the number 2 is selected at the top of the screen. Hit the center button when you are ready to save these settings. A screen that reads registered will briefly appear and then disappear, taking you back to the menu. All of these settings have now been saved to your camera. All you have to do is turn the dial on the top of the camera to the number 2 icon. Notice the screen displays all of those saved settings in order to quickly check that everything is still correct. You can follow these same steps to save another custom preset to number 1. For my workflow, I prefer a 4K setting here, but unfortunately I'm unable to show you how to do that because I cannot record my camera screen in 4K. Also, note that if you change the turn dial over to the M icon for manual, you can begin shooting photos. However, it's best to turn off your picture profile when shooting photography. All you have to do is select custom button number 1 and turn that off. The camera will remember to save that anytime you switch out of manual mode. This might seem confusing at first, but once you get your camera set to your preference, it's just a matter of getting used to everything. It's best practice to eliminate the amount of time you're spending in your menu while you're on set. That way you can focus your attention on the creative aspect of filmmaking and not the technical aspects. I really hope this helps. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below and I'll be sure to answer them. As always, thank you for watching and see you next time.